Well, hey there everybody, it's Snackbox coming to you from a beautiful day down here in Basement Studio. Really excited to come to you with an update. A few years ago I put together a video on Hitchless Resupply on the Colorado Trail, and I'm here bringing you an update to this because a few places have closed, a few new places have opened, which allows some new opportunities for you to go all the way from Denver to Durango without having to hitch for your resupply. So we got a lot to cover, not a lot of time. Let's get to it, everybody. Well, before we begin, let's talk about a few of the basic principles here, or basic ideas that will really help you along the way. First thing that I want to tell you is that the #1 resource that you can use for making sure you can hike the Colorado Trail without relying on hitches is this guy right here. This is the data book, the Colorado Trail data book. I know a lot of people really love the app, and I would encourage you to have the app. I believe it's called Far Out now. It used to be called Gut Hook. But this here is really instrumental in helping you to figure out a lot of the things that are going to be left off of the app. In fact, I put a video together on it, and I'll tell you all the reasons that I love the data book, especially for planning a really great thru hike. I'll link it right here, so take a peek at it. Let me know if you have any questions. Reach out to me here or on Instagram at Backcountry Champion, and I'll be happy to help you with these different strategic all of these different things. I'll be happy to help you with them as you start planning the best adventure of your entire life. Now, the other resource that's really unique to the Colorado Trail that you won't find on other trails is the Shuttlers and Trail Angels list. This one will really help you. What you do is you go to the Colorado Trail website, I'll link it below, and you just put in your name into this form, and they will email you an updated list of the current Shuttlers and Trail Angels. These are folks who have agreed to either come out for free and take you to and from the trailhead to town, or they'll do it for a fee. But if you're really nervous about hitching, then this will be well worth it for you to have with you. And even if you're not nervous about it, this is a really great resource for you. Before we get started though, I do want to give you a word of caution that a lot of people, especially those of you who might be a little nervous about the trip, will make the mistake of trying to over plan. So you will try to have every single detail nailed down by way of when you're going to get from one place to another. You might say something like, all right, at the end of day 17, I'm going to be at Cottonwood Pass. And that might be great in theory, but the reality is very different for a number of different reasons. #1 is you're probably going to run into some things that are going to be challenges you didn't expect, or maybe you're going to find out that you're a lot stronger hiker than you realize. So the chances of you being exactly where you think you're going to be every day of the hike are slim to none. So my first word of encouragement is don't over plan, because it only takes one day of, say, a thunderstorm for all of your plans to go out the window. So don't over plan as well. Just be as prepared as possible for the contingencies, and that's what this video is all about. As we go through this, I'm going to walk us through the entire trail. So I'm going to walk us mile by mile. These will all be in order of different ways you can resupply along the trail, and some of them you might find really useful and some of them you might not, and that's okay as well. But if you have any additions, if you're a seasoned hiker or you know some places that maybe I left off of the list, leave those in the comments below. I'm sure everybody would love to see those also. So you leave Waterton Canyon and you start your hike, and the first real spot to resupply without a hitch is going to be at Buffalo Creek. This is right at the end of segment 2. It's about a mile from the end of segment 2. You're going to come to a fire station, and Buffalo Creek is a small town, and you'll have to road walk about 3 miles into town. There is a post office there, so you could mail yourself a resupply box, or you could go to their general store, which has very minimal provision. So it's not a great one to count on for a resupply as such, but it could help you touch up some of the things if you feel like maybe you need something or you're running low on something. This is a good place to just have in mind. Typically speaking though, 27 miles in is where somebody might be on day 2 or 3. So most people aren't looking for a resupply that early. It's a really good one to know though if you get into trouble, or you realize maybe you're not as in shape as you needed to be to finish the hike, or maybe an injury starts plaguing you early. It's a good bail point to know about because there is a highway there. I believe it's Colorado Highway 126, and it's a good spot because you are going to be more likely to find cell phone service, especially there by the fire station. So you leave the fire station and then you head all the way through segment 3 there, and that's a really tough segment because it's a little bit exposed, it's a little bit hot, and you're going to have mountain bikers everywhere. So at the end of that segment, you're going to come to the Rolling Creek trailhead, which is about mile 40.7, and this is a spot where if you've coordinated early with the Linwood Hostel, it's now known as the Two Bridges Lodge, they will send a shuttle out for $15 and take you back to their hostel, which is terrific. You can get a night with a nice shower hour. They have, the town of Bailey has a little store you can buy some stuff. If you're planning ahead, you can ship stuff ahead, and that would be a really great way to go, especially if this is maybe your first big hike. You can ship a package and then start that first segment, the first 3 segments, with say 3 days of food, and that would allow you a much lighter pack through some really difficult segments. Now, the elevation profile for segments 1 through 3 isn't very aggressive, but the sun exposure is. It's among the most intense areas for sun exposure. So doing that segment in 2 or 3 days is a really good idea. And then doing it with a light pack will allow you a lot more speed, especially as you go to get those trail legs. So you're not going to have sort of a knee injury early or early in the process, or maybe if the sun starts draining you, you can really move and step up those miles through that segment to the burn zone, which is all sun exposure. If you make it then from mile 40.7 all the way to Kenosha Pass, that's your next real opportunity, which is at mile 71.7. At Kenosha Pass, it's $20 then for a shuttle, so I believe it's $40 round trip. Still well worth it. They will come pick you up from the Kenosha Pass and take you all the way to Bailey to the hostel, where you can do the same thing, get a resupply. So if you did this, you could send a resupply there and maybe hike 4 or 5 days all the way to Kenosha Pass, then go out, take a day, get a breather, rest your legs, get your resupply, go back on trail before you really start hitting that next segment, which is when you're going to start seeing areas like Georgia Pass above tree line and making your way down to Breckenridge. It's also worth it if you don't want to go to the hostel. From Kenosha Pass, you could actually walk south down to the town of Jefferson, which is about 4.5 miles, and they have a couple of little cafes. They've got a general store where you could resupply and then walk back. Most people would choose to hitch from here because it's a really well-traveled road. You're going to have lots and lots of cars. It's US Highway 285, and so you'll have lots of cars, or you could strike up a conversation with folks at the campground there, and oftentimes you would feel comfortable going with somebody into town. But if you do decide to walk it, which is totally okay as well, all I would recommend is that you be very careful, because there are some spots as you make your way down to Jefferson where the shoulder is very narrow, and it's a pretty fast road. So just be very careful if you decide to walk it. Same thing holds true if you decide to hitch it. Be very careful. But if you're watching this, chances are good you're not comfortable hitching. So just be careful. That's all I'm saying. The next big stop, and this one is almost essential for absolutely everyone, this is at mile 104. This is where you come out at the Gold Hill Trailhead, and you'll have the option of taking a free bus either to Frisco or crossing the highway and taking a free bus down to Breckenridge. The buses run about every hour or so, so it's pretty easy to make sure that you're on a bus pretty soon after you arrive in town. There is a shelter at each of those, so if it's raining or too sunny, you can get out of both of those, and you just take a free shuttle into town. Both of them have grocery stores. Frisco has a Walmart, they have restaurants galore, they have plenty of resupply options, both of them have post offices and the like. If you decide to take a night off, there are a couple of hostels down there in Breckenridge, and there's a really nice hostel called the Bibby, but my one word of caution is that they do not answer their phone calls. Not once, not ever. They do not answer their phone calls, so do not book in advance. Make sure that you book when you get to the town of Breckenridge, because if you accidentally book the wrong night, or if you're a day ahead, there's no option for you to get in touch with them, because again, they do not answer their phone calls. That is not something they do. I don't know what's going on with it, but I've had 3 separate times I've needed to get in touch with them and I haven't been able to. That said, the hostel itself is lovely. It's among the most beautiful hostels I've ever stayed in, so it is worth a night in the hostel, but just remember, they don't answer their phones. Now, from there, you're actually going to go over the 10-mile range from the Gold Hill Trailhead at mile 104, and you're going to climb up this really steep climb and then descend down what I consider one of the steepest descents on the entire trail if you're going southbound on the Colorado Trail. At the bottom of that, you're going to get to the Copper Mountain Ski Resort, and this is a place which will be basically a ghost town at this point because it's not ski season, obviously, but there is a little store there where you can resupply on some things, or you can hop on a free bus that will take you back to Frisco and drop you off at the Walmart where you can resupply and come back. The obvious disadvantage here is that would take probably 4 or 5 hours to do the entire round trip, because you'd be waiting on a bus at each, and there's no telling if you miss one bus you're waiting an extra hour. But for many people this is worth it, and you could head back to Frisco and get a less expensive night in the hotel than if you were staying in the Copper Resort. All that being said, you have 2 options for resupply at that point that you wouldn't need to hitch. You could take either public transit for free, or you could go into the little shop and buy some groceries and the like. Now, when you get to Copper though, make sure that you actually go to their little gas station convenience store, because they do have a little cafe which will sell breakfast burritos and that sort of thing, but their food prepared is absolutely the most expensive I've ever seen. I paid $27 last year for 2 sliders and a beer, which was insane, and that's before the tip. So don't buy their prepared food unless you've got a wallet to beat the band. I don't know what that means either, but just know that there is a little gas station convenience store where you could go in and buy pretty affordably priced provisions, things like crackers, ramen, cheese, you name it. They've got a lot of stuff that you could resupply to get you through to the next stop where you wouldn't need to hitch to get to somewhere with provisions. Now, where would that be? And that is the town of Twin Lakes. Now, Twin Lakes is about mile 170, and this is where you have to make the decision about whether or not you're going to go east or west around the Collegiates. But in the town of Twin Lakes, which almost everybody stops in, it's about a half-mile off trail. So everybody goes there and gets a dinner, gets a snack, whatever it is. In that town, there is the Twin Lakes General Store, which is run by backpackers, and they know what backpackers need. They're great at taking resupply boxes and shipments, and they will give them out to you. I believe it's only $5, and that's only if your box is really big. But I'll leave a link here. They are terrific. Now, word of caution, or maybe a favor, I don't know what you're gonna call it, but here's the deal. Last year, some folks went to the Twin Lakes General Store. I don't know the whole story, but what I do know is they implemented some really strict rules about drinking in front of the store, which tells me that some people misbehaved pretty awfully outside of the Twin Lakes General Store, and alcohol was involved. What I'm going to ask of you is, if you do stop in the town of Twin Lakes, please don't give Colorado trail hikers a bad name. We are a lovely community, and it would be really a bummer if a few bad apples really messed up that town. Twin Lakes is one of my favorite places on the whole trail. So if you do decide to stop in that town, just be a good reflection and a good ambassador for the trail for us, because we want to make sure we're still welcome in that town. Let's take care of our image when we get to town and just be good ambassadors of the Colorado Trail. At this point though, you are at mile 170 and you have about 40 miles on the east or 50 miles on the west until you can get to the next presumable spot where you could get into a resupply without a hitch, and that is, if you're on the east, the Avalanche Trailhead, and if you're on the west, it's the Cottonwood Pass Trailhead. Now this is on the same road, it's just on the east or west. So on the west, you're at mile 220, on the east, you're at mile 210. It's the same road that goes straight into the town of Buena Vista. I know you think I said that wrong, but I didn't say it wrong. Buena Vista is how the locals say it. And in the town of Buena Vista, you have a store called the Trailhead, which has all the hiking gear you'll need. So if you need new fuel, if you need packaged meals, or maybe you need a new pair of hiking shoes, or maybe your tent poles broke, whatever you need, the Trailhead will have it. And then they have a couple of grocery stores in that town as well. If you were on the east at the Avalanche Trailhead, you could presumably walk the 8 miles. Same rule holds true. Be very careful. There are a couple of winding spots which are pretty narrow. Just be very careful if you decide to walk it. 8 miles is not really that much if you've already been hiking this many miles to begin with. The other option is to get in touch in advance with the BV Overlook campground. Last year I was up at Cottonwood Pass and I saw them dropping folks off. They did advertise on the Facebook group that they were willing to coordinate shuttles. That's my personal recommendation, is to coordinate a shuttle with the BV Overlook campground and hostel. This is a great place for you to go camp for the night and get cleaned up. There is a shower there. There's also a public shower in the town of Buena Vista. It's a really good option for a lot of folks if you decide that you want to get cleaned up or get a resupply. BV is a cool town. I encourage you to stop in there, but many of you won't need it this early, especially if you just left the town of Twin Lakes. So just know that this is a good sort of bail point for many people if you just need a day to rest or recover. I was having some knee pain at this time last year, so I took a day and just rested up there before heading forward. Now, for those of you heading east, the next reliable option is the Mount Princeton Hot Springs. The Mount Princeton Hot Springs will take a resupply box, and they also have a gift shop with a number of snacks that you could load up or top off your snacks and make your way, and it is right on the trail. There's a really nice area where you can buy an ice cream and a cold drink, sit outside and sit in some shade, make sure that you are well rested, because the next stretch past the Mount Princeton Hot Springs is really hot. It's pretty exposed. You're in some pines. And so if you do pass by there, even if you're not getting a resupply, I encourage you to sit and wait a little bit, especially if it's in the heat of the day. You'll be coming down a road walk anyway and have been baked to begin with, so you probably are going to want to stop there anyhow. Mount Princeton Hot Springs is also a great spot if you have people that you want to come meet you. It's a little bit expensive, so you might not be able to sort of front the money for that, and that's okay, but it is a good spot as a meetup point because it's right on the trail. You don't have to worry about anybody getting lost. But if you're on the west, if you take the Collegiate West, which, by the way, go west. What is wrong with you? The west is incredible. Now, when you go west at mile 252, the first thing to know is that the Monarch Spur is closed. So far as I know, last year they closed. It was a real bummer. It was a little campground that would take a resupply. It was about a mile south of the road crossing there, and so it is closed, unfortunately. Now, that's not great news, but there is the Monarch Pass gift shop, which if you go west, you're going to cross the US Highway 50 and it's right there. In the past, every other year, they will take resupply boxes, but just get in touch with them early and you might be able to ship a package there. In the past, they've said they're not sure, and almost every year they've agreed to. So if they do agree to, same rules apply as in Twin Lakes. Be a good ambassador of the trail, be kind to the people, don't leave a mess, don't be a jerk if they're not letting you charge your phones. Just be really a great ambassador from the trail when you stop in there. And hopefully they'll let us keep resupplying there, sending resupply boxes. They do have a little stand where you could pick up some food and a couple little small things. It's really probably just candy for the most part, or sort of gas station food, but it's enough to kind of make your way. And there is a snack bar with things like nachos and hot dogs. Nothing that's going to be something you'll take on the trail, but it's plenty of food that if you wanted to have lunch there, you certainly could, and get an ice cream, that kind of thing. It's especially good in that area if the storms are rolling in, because once you leave the Monarch gift shop and start making your way down to the end of the Collegiate West, you're exposed almost the whole way. So if it's starting to look stormy, wait it out there in the snack bar, get a bunch of food, go crazy, live it up. You know how it goes. The other option, and this one is a little shakier, but if you are taking the west, there is an option at near the end of segment CW4 where you can take a dirt road down to the Butterfly House Hostel, and at that hostel they do often have a phone number for trail angels or shuttlers who can come up and take you to the town of Salida. This is generally a pretty good option, but the word of caution that I have for you is that the Butterfly House does have a reputation of being sort of party central. In the past, I've gone there and it's been plenty fine. It's a convenient spot. The hosts are plenty friendly, but in the past when I went, turned out that it was such a party that by the end of the night, everybody was drunk and making a lot of noise, which for some people, if you are younger than me, you might love that. And that might sound perfect, and more power to you if that's the case. But I found it to be a little bit uncomfortable because if something did go wrong, there was nobody that I could talk to because the owners were also in there having a good time as well. So it just makes it a little more complicated at that point. So just know that they're very welcoming, but it is certainly a party spot and you're kind of on your own from there. But there are shuttles that will come right there, and it's very easy for you to get a shuttle from the shuttlers list there and make your way into Salida and back. So if you're looking for a resupply, that's a good spot because the next likely resupply is a long way down the trail. And where is that resupply? That is all the way at mile 343 at San Luis Pass. You can turn left there and go into the town of Creede. Now there is San Juan Sports there in Creede, which will have all of the gear that you need. There's a small shop there for food and resupply, and you can ship resupply boxes ahead there to Creede as well. This is a cute little town. A lot of people choose to stay in a hotel there, and here's the thing, you have to go 10 miles off trail to get there. So if you do decide to go to the town of Creede, I recommend staying the night if at all possible, because it's a long 20-mile back and forth. What you will find as well is that there are going to be a lot of side-by-sides passing through there. So at this point, many people who started the trail uncomfortable with hitching get a little more comfortable with hitching. And those folks on the side-by-sides and four-wheelers tend to be surprisingly welcome to hikers. So if you put your thumb out and they have an extra seat, chances are pretty good they're going to pick you up and take you into town. So at that point, just think it over. I don't want to encourage anybody to do something they're uncomfortable with, and obviously I can't vouch for anybody's safety if they do something like that, but just know that that's typically what I've found to be the case. The other option is to skip that turn and go all the way on to mile 357 where you'll get to Spring Creek Pass. So at Spring Creek Pass, for the last number of years, there's been a 12 o'clock shuttle run by the Ravens Rest Hostel. Now if you go to the Ravens Rest Hostel down in the town of Lake City, this is one of my favorite places, but what I I want to tell you is make sure you go in immediately and take care of your bed and get your spot, because there are really only a handful of beds there and they fill up quickly. One year I went there and I went and got a bed, and the group I was with decided they would go out and have lunch first, and by the time they finished lunch, all the beds were gone and everybody was in a real pickle because there was nowhere for them to stay. A lot of the lodges there fill up really quickly. There are a handful of hotels, handful of campgrounds, but it's very tough to get a spot there. So the Raven's Rest is certainly a great spot. It's kind of a rite of passage for many people to stay at the Raven's Rest because it's a real marker before you are about to finish up the trail at mile 357. It's most people's last resupply, or really close to the last resupply. Many people will fill up there in Lake City. There is a small grocery store. You can send a resupply to the Raven's Rest, or there is a post office you can send a resupply to right next to a laundromat, which is good to know as well, because you can do laundry, do a resupply. They're all kind of in the same corner of the town. From there though, when you get back up to the pass there at Spring Creek Pass, you will make your way all the way to mile 411. At mile 411, you're going to come to the Mullis Creek Campground, or Mullis Pass Campground rather. And the Mullis Pass Campground is a spot where a lot of people send their very final resupply. You can hitch all the way over into Silverton, or at the bottom of the Animas River, you can often flag down the train and the train will pick you up and take you to town. But I believe the tickets for that are close to $200. So a lot of people choose not to take the train into Silverton. But if you've got the wallet, that would be really cool. Anyway, at the Mullis Creek or Mullis Pass, I keep saying Mullis Creek, it's not Mullis Creek. At Mullis Pass Campground, you can get a resupply your stuff. They also will sell you showers if you want to shower before making that last push, the last 75 miles or so to the end of the trail, or you can just keep marching on from there. Now, this is one of the best stretches of the entire trail from Mullis Pass on to the finish line, and this is a spot I would encourage you to really enjoy, do everything you can to enjoy, but know that effectively that Mullis Creek Campground, Mullis Creek, why did I say it again? Mullis Pass Campground is really the last spot to resupply until you finish. It's about 75 miles from there, so most people will finish in about 4 or 5 days from there. Some people can finish in 3. Just know that this is a really good spot. You can also stop in, if you have plenty of food, you can stop in and just get an ice cream and a cold drink and make your way forward. It's just a great spot from there. Make your way on down, head into Durango, enjoy yourself, have a great trip. That basically covers it. If you follow this map all the way through, you are going to be in all kinds of good shape making your plan so that you can go all the way from Denver to Durango without ever having to stick a thumb out. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If you do, you can leave the comments there. You can send me a message on Instagram at Backcountry Champion, and I'll be happy to get back to you with any answers that I can. Have a great trip out there, everybody. This is Snack Box out.